Adults of Reddit, how did you cope with the fact that your high school life is over? I admit I didn't make the transition to college easily at first. In high school I was lucky to be a dork but a kinda friends with everyone dork. I was a really good musician and was kinda known for that, and I felt special. But then I went to college for music, and I was now suddenly with a zillion people who were all the me's of their high school. So suddenly I wasn't special anymore because we were all the good musicians from our respective high schools. In retrospect, it was a really important life lesson for me to learn. Don't let your ego get too big. You're not really that special, but it stung at the time. But I'm a really old fart now, and now I just remember high school very fondly. Did you just graduate? How are you handling it? Thank the gods I don't have to go back ever again. Drank some beer, smoked some cones, had a bottle of champagne. Threw up like an 18-year-old does, then started working full-time the following Monday. Finishing school is one of the best times in your life. You don't have to be anywhere, do anything or answer to anyone, except whoever owns the house you're living in. Enjoy it for a while, then get a job. Lol. I have never missed it. Ever. Not in 20 plus years. By rejoicing. High school was fucking awful. Immediately forgot every one of those fools. Except for a couple of great teachers. And that one girl. Beer and weed. For me, I unfollowed people on social media that I went to high school with but don't talk to. Not seeing their posts made me somewhat stop thinking about high school and the people and the experiences, which helped me to move on with what I was doing in the present. High school was fun but after was more funner. Then a lot less fun. Now not much fun at all. I am glad it was over 20 years ago. There is nothing good apt high school. The worst part was the disappearance of summers off. I don't really think any of these comments are very helpful to op. It's clear that they had a lot of attachment to their high school, their friends, the familiarity of it all, and then you graduate and suddenly all of that is gone. I know what you're going through op. When I graduated high school 5 years ago, I was distraught and didn't really know what my life was gonna be like once I moved past that chapter. All I can say to you op is that it's okay to be upset, let yourself feel sad about it. Over time though, you'll move on, there will be better for you in the future. You'll either make new friends as you get older, or the friendships that you've made in high school will continue and only get deeper. Either way, as long as you don't hold on to the past and keep moving forwards, things will get better. Thank God. That shit sucked ass. I went back for 37 more years as a teacher. By the time that ended, I was ready to retire, so it wasn't very traumatic at all, although it was kind of sad on that final day, getting up from my desk, walking to the classroom door, taking one last look, turning out the lights, closing and locking the door, and walking to the office to turn in my keys. I loved my career, and I can only wish that everyone who reads this ends up loving theirs as much as I did. Good riddance. By never having anything to do with any of those people ever again. I was over high school the day I finished my last final. I didn't stick around for the ceremony. When I started work 2 days later, I basically forgot school. September a year later I started university and learned what parts of high school had actually mattered: socializing, calculus, English, and Latin. High school is not the best time of your life. That is some bullshit fed to you by people who peaked in high school. I was homeless and broke for a couple years after high school, and I would rather go back to that than suffer another second of my teenage years. I've grown, started a career, married a damn good woman, started a family, failed and triumphed, been through good times and bad, and I would not trade a single second of any of it for a re-experience of high school. As an adult you will be scared, and challenged, but if you push through you will give yourself more memorable and subjectively better life experiences than anything that happened in school. If you give up on yourself then you'll look back at those high school years as if they were somehow magical. They weren't. Not well. Common theme. I was a special kid until I got to college, and the fact I went from being top of my class to someone nobody cared about closer to the middle made me upset. I missed the fun easy days in high school, homecoming, friends asking you to hang, and that was exciting. Eventually I got depressed and had to fight through that. Once it was done, I realized how silly it was to be upset over that. Life after high school gets significantly better, for most, not all. You get more freedom since you're an adult, more money most likely since you're able to find better jobs. High school for me was awesome, but what comes after is just better. I had fun during high school, but not in high school. I had a feeling life afterwards would be more fun, and my gut instinct was correct. Oh, I loved high school. Until I learned how to drink booze, and then I loved parties more. That made it pretty easy. Oh, it also super ruined the first part of my adult life, too. I'm only just now back on track and I'm 32. Popping the metaphorical champagne. I had a lot good times in high school, but it was just one chapter of a life with many chapters, and each is totally different in what it brings you. I don't think anyone is better than any other, they're just different, and now that your first major one is behind you, you still have so much to look forward to. The two things about high school that you don't get in any other stage of life are that you'll never be around such a spectrum of people, and you'll probably never have the same degree of freedom from responsibilities. I do really miss my social groups from that time, and I miss how much time and energy I could devote to the things I found interesting. High school means 5 days a week you see every type of person, regardless of wealth, status, education, hobbies, beliefs. After high school I did university, and that was amazing in so many ways. Then I found a job and I loved learning from my coworkers who'd done so much, and before I knew it I was one of them showing new hires the ropes. Getting married was my next big step into a new chapter, and I love our life together now. Each stage of life had great times and really tough times. Every chapter is an experience that I want to relive, but I wouldn't want to trade places. Don't let high school be the best time of your life though. There are lots of people who resign to thinking their life will never be that good again, and that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. By the way, make sure to celebrate your high school time and write down, document some of the things you enjoyed or hated the most. Future you will enjoy reading about it someday. With unrestrained jubilation. Like this. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=zeitgeist-way. NGL hated high school while I was in it. But once I finished high school I really started to miss it. I remember feeling kind of weird and rather sad on my last day. I was never popular or anything and was bullied quite a bit during the first year or so in high school, but I had two good friends. Found transitioning after high school extremely hard, especially because my high school was pretty small, so in college found it hard being around like a gazillion students, especially when trying to make friends. Took a while to adjust. It never bothered me. I was going to college, which would be better than high school in almost every way. And then I was going to get a job and earn money and do interesting things. I had some good friends in high school that I ended up missing in later years. But I never regretted moving on and not being a broke-ass, powerless teenager anymore. Privacy, financial stability, and self-determination are way better. Cope, like you think you peaked in high school and it's all downhill from here? It really only hit me a few months ago when I realized it's already been nearly 5 years since I graduated. So I got drunk and relived some old memories of being a delinquent youth riding my board through town with a whole squad of delinquents. Except this time it was only me. Even though it's not the same anymore, my life overall is better than it was then. I do wish I could relive some of those days, but I don't want to redo the whole thing by any means. I went to work. It worried me a lot my summer before college, but by October I was way over it. I now look back on it fondly as I do college years. Cope, it wasn't a loss, it was a win. Hated HS. Just try to focus on being the best I can be and live with my choices. I looked forward to starting my adult life and went off to college. 10 years later I've never looked back without a ton of cringe. I tried to kill myself at least once for every year I was in high school. Graduated, it's almost a decade later, and I have had a single attempt. So I'm good. High school was fine, but it is just so invigorating to get a taste of a little more freedom. College, work, roommates, major, where to go, what to do, who to spend your time with. It's all up to you. By growing up. Go watch Hook. You can't be a child forever. Well, my 10-year is coming up next month. I had some good times, made some friends that I know will always be in my life. But I cut off everyone except for a few people, and even though I'm still in my hometown, I'm really glad I never see anyone else that stayed. High school is barely even a blip in someone's life. This has to be a high school asking this. I moved out, got a car, and began a super awesome life free of the constraints of adolescence. Going on 20 years and I still don't give a flying fuck about those assholes I went to school with. High school was awful. There's so much after high school. High school is barely remotely real life or the rest of your life. Look to the future horizon and see it for hope and promise. I thought I would be sad until the last week of high school when I had this sudden realization that I didn't care if I never saw any of those people ever again. I wasn't bullied or anything but hadn't had any close friends. Now my only thoughts about that time period are wishing I decided on a community college instead of owing dollar in student loans. High school is horseshit. Get out there and take some fucking risks. Work at something. Dream. Fight for those dreams. Lose some. Build a life. This is 2021. High school was never anything to care for. Nowadays it might as well be like my 8th grade. I'm 36. If high school is your peak, you are doing life wrong. No need to cope. High school was fine, but I knew I had better things ahead of me. I imagine that adults who feel the need to cope about high school being over may be feeling dissatisfied with their lives as they are now, and I'd encourage them to identify what their values are, what is enriching or meaningful to them, and start moving in that direction. For those that have just graduated and feel the need to cope with that, I would give them the same advice with the addition that it's okay to be feeling nervous, scared, or a sense of grief about the closing of that chapter. These feelings often come with periods of transition and change. High school is one chapter of many. Make the next ones worthwhile. Not an adult, just graduated early. I am free from those idiots. Lol, life begins at the end of high school. At least it did for me. I am very close to finishing high school. I may be way better without it. Fuck school. Quite happily. High school sucked. It's been about 10 years. I don't think I ever had to cope with it though. I was happy as hell to get out of there and had no real achievements in school anyway. I just kinda progressed to the next stage of freedom before real adulthood hit me. I don't even do any of my high school reunions. What do you think? With much relief. I don't think about it. You know, there were times I would return back to the football field and reimagine that touchdown pass I caught before blowing my ACL. It was a really tough blow on me as I'd spent a lot of years training very hard to get a D1 scholarship. I was so close too. I was getting looked at by Marshall and Southern Miss. Not huge schools, certainly not in Alabama, but this was free school and I wanted it so bad. So this gave me a little bit of a tougher transition into adulthood. But don't let me distract you from the fact that on March 1, 2002, when Chip Skylark released his chart-topping new single, My Shiny Teeth and Me, it inspired an entire generation to brush their teeth, and it makes me remember that none of my problems are unsolvable. Cry into my money. Sad, but excited for college. Some of my coworkers who have been out of college for at least 5 years still talk about high school. I don't get this. It happened so long ago. What's the deal with this? For me it was pretty awesome. I went from someone easily forgotten and unseen in high school to big man on campus in college, involved with student government, the campus radio station and a bunch of other activities. It felt great to be seen. I work in staffing and recruiting, so I know most people here are mentioning college, but that's not realistic for a lot of people, which is absolutely okay. Wages in our area, the South, are $16.50 for entry level and expands exponentially if you show up and work. It won't be the most glamorous job, but if you start now and put in 4 years, college for most, you'll be at around $55,000 a year, which is incredible. Now you have to grow up and learn to commit, but finding yourself through a manual labor job is something that can't be taught. If it's not for you, college is an option, but 7 to 8 years out of high school, 80 to 100K salary isn't a fairy tale if you put in the hard work it takes. High school is fun, but after being out for 10 years, you see so many pupils fall into addictions and not make it out. Breathe and move on. You are in control of your entire life. Best of luck. Cope. High school was awful. I was ecstatic to leave. If you liked HS, chances are you're one of the problems most of us never want to deal with for the rest of our lives. Sorry to be blunt. Good. High school is GAEEEEEEEE. College is awesome. Stay as long as you can. I celebrated. High school was awful, and there are many more opportunities and choices to make as an adult. Celebrate by drinking. Don't have to see my high school bullies ever again if I don't wanna. High school? I barely remember it, and it wasn't that great. You realize that life after high school is better. By realizing that life is school, and we're never really finished. The same rules still apply when you actually sit down and think about it. I breathed a big fat fucking sigh of relief. I didn't like high school. I had no friends, didn't like my teachers, and didn't like my schedule. I got good grades and everything, but it wasn't a good experience. So I cope by being relieved that it's over. I do miss being young, though. College made me too busy to have time to think about it. Celebrated. High school sucked for me in a lot of ways. 10 years later, adult life just keeps getting better. I was overjoyed. I hated almost the whole entirety. I eventually became more depressed and now not in the best place but better than a month ago. My sleep pattern is fucked though. Remember the good times, but if there are bad times, remember those too. Nostalgia is real, and it's important to keep things in perspective by balancing the good and bad if you can. Since I never scored 4 touchdowns in a single game at Polk High, I was ready to move on. I found my niche in college. I hung out with the teachers after school and helped teach the class a few times. Lol. I went to college. I don't want to adult juiced yet. Tears of joy. Thanks for watching. See you later.